Think about the interactions. You had the energy executive from California talking about relationships. We've all heard the cliche about relationships. So every time we take this ball from someone else, we take their energy, whether it's good or bad, and what do we do with it? So we'll get back to this. Finally, the sense of power, which is energy. You know, isn't that what we're trying to do with our children? How many of you have children? Okay, so you are productive. You know, and isn't it as models for our children 1,000 times past what we say, what we do? And the power we give our children, the sense that they have power. That's hope, that's direction, that's purpose, that's all those things in one. How many of you recognize this? Everybody? The Sistine Chapel, Michelangelo did 130 odd reliefs over 17 years. By the way, many people thought he had ADD. I'm thinking if you can do 130 reliefs of that caliber over 17 years, you probably knew how to focus, even though some people thought he had ADD. And you also knew how to bring passion to your life. And this is the seminal piece because it's literally God giving power or life to man in that moment. And as you look at this, it's not obvious, except it's a very strange, I mean, look how strange that shape is behind what he represents as God or the higher power. But if you begin to step back, it's the pituitary gland that's sticking out there like a leg. It's the spinal cord that's streaming there. It's the human brain. And so, much like the Da Vinci Code, Michelangelo was gently suggesting that God or our life is not just about living, not just about spirit, but it's also the mind. I mean, I'm going to use this word God, but the mind of an eternal, unlimited energy, unlimited capacity and creativity. You're a director. How are you? Nice to meet you. So I just think that's really a lot of this is where do we draw our power, and do we forget at times during those times of great tragedy? What do we do with what do we use this for? And in my work with kids that have been bullied, those scars last forever. They never forget it, no matter how much therapy they go through. Native American kids that go through drug abuse and incest. But if you tell them and help them to live out through art, through creativity, the part of their brain that's infinite, they'll keep finding lessons to take them to a better place. Take them to the creative place where even though they've been sexually abused and horrendously verbally abused in their lives, and they've thought that's who they are, they can find a bridge and transcend to somewhere else. Does that make sense? And that's what we all have to do. I'm going to tell you two quick stories. My best friend in Kansas City was a guy named Steve Willis. And as I was giving a speech last week, I found in my pocket the wedding invitation of his daughter. And it made me think very deeply about Steve because Steve had tried to make it in the NFL, but he had something that most of us don't have to deal with. His father was murdered when he was 10. He did not have a father. He had an alcoholic stepfather. And yet Steve had turned around his life, even though he didn't make it in the NFL, raised 3 kids who were college athletes, and he was Lauren, his oldest daughter, marrying former quarterback from KU, and now already an assistant head coach. And I thought, how fantastic it is, someone like that had that kind of tragedy and has become such a father. And he told me this story, and I remember it, when Lauren was born, he called me up that night and he said, I looked at her and I took her in my arms and I said, I'm going to be the father to you that I never had. I thought, how many of us can do that? And that leads into the second story, because I had a friend named Harry Wilson at Dartmouth College who'd been my holder, much like Brad's going to be, and you're going to be the snapper, young man. And Harry was good-looking, African-American wide receiver, number 29, quiet, calm, tremendous resolve, but sort of a blue flame, a low burning flame. Didn't have to talk about what he did. He just was a leader by example. I played with him on the baseball team and on the football team. He went on to the University of Virginia Law School. And he invited me during the midst of my NFL career to do one of the most honorable things I've ever done. I just was so excited to help him. From Richmond, Virginia, he had founded the African American Sports Hall of Fame, and he asked me to be a board member. And so I was on that board for a number of years, and then Harry got a very serious case of diabetes and cancer. And about 6 years ago, I called up, and his son answered the phone. And I knew his son was a good athlete. I knew he was in college and had some real potential, was playing both baseball and football. And his son came back to the phone and said, because I wanted to talk to Harry before he died. And he said, Harry, my father can't speak to you. So I never got to talk to Harry again. Fast forward to this year and last year. Late in the season last year, I'm watching the Seattle Seahawks. This quarterback. And suddenly I realized, this is Russell Wilson. This is Harry Wilson's son. And I thought, whew, is he the embodiment of my friend Harry Wilson? And any of you, whether you're Broncos fans or Seattle fans for the Super Bowl, I think you can appreciate what kind of leader he is. And frankly, he's probably the opposite of Richard Sherman, right? Richard Sherman's over here, look at me! I'm the greatest! And Russell Wilson is the perfect antidote for the rest of the team, keeping them focused no matter how bad things get, and no matter how much tragedy he endured by losing his father, who was so important to him. Do you see him carrying that weight? He channels it into something productive. He channels his energy into something that is a sustainable energy. And he does say, I will say, he says, I am playing for an audience of one, for God. And if I please him, that's all I have to worry about.